I was going to mention the arrest of him and I think it was two or three other religious leaders um, when they were making their prayer in the rotunda as something that just had that hijab tight. And I was sorry that after once the program was concluded, that I hadn't brought up that point because I think there's so much good work that he is doing, and he's been able to galvanize people. That I was sorry that I did not um, get to make that point. That I got distracted. We went off into a different area, but um, I think that I know that there is an emphasis in trying this hands-off movement. I believe that's the name of it. Was trying to really reach out, or either there's some African American leaders who are trying to get more African Americans engaged in those series of standing up and demonstrations and protests and whatnot. I would really hope that we give a lot of support to what Dr. Barber and the groups that are affiliated with him are doing, because I think they're really striking at some of um, the critical political and economic issues that are really a part of the underpinning of what's going on in the politics of today. I'm sorry, I'm hesitating because this screen is giving me so many different system generated messages. I can't hardly think. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, I'll turn it back over to Cheryl.
Oh, that's me. I apologize. I'm trying to get the clock right. That was me.
Oh, oh,
Hey,
okay.
no, 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 no. No. And Brother Fleming, you probably have more on that, because I think that occurred when you guys were in DC, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that was, in fact, I spoke to the young lady in North Carolina who's our state coordinator. Her first name is Sangria, and I've extended an invitation for her to come on and talk more specifically about that. I even reached out to the Repair the Breaches group out of Yale University that worked with Dr. Barber, and they said they were in a legal situation because it's going to be challenged, and they didn't want to make him make a public comment right now because of that. Uh, but quite often, he would gather an interfaith group with the same message on the impact it has on poor people, those that are disenfranchised, etc. And he also always uses this methodology. He tries to bring someone in that's really been impacted, and they give their statement about how they've been harmed as somewhat of a living testimony. And that makes it very real for people, I would say, ordinary people. It's very effective. And so going forward, I mean, we can maybe spend 5 minutes in our program just to give an update. We have a program coming up Thursday, in fact, where we're going to have a moral movement in Washington, D.C. And I'll tell you more about that at another location, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So, Michael, for me, you had your hand up.
Yes, ma'am. I was told I was being considered for co-host.
We didn't come
Okay, I'm
to,
on the clock. I'm on the
we,
clock.
we
All
didn't
right.
come to Cheryl on that yet, Brother
All right.
Michael.
I'm on the clock. Imam Muhammad, he offered this in terms of mothers. He said every mother should go straightway to heaven, and especially if they've had babies in August, in the summertime. Uh, there is a translation of Surah and Nisa where Yusuf Ali gives the what do you call it? The translation of Arham being the wombs that bore you. More functionally, Imam Muhammad translated that as the female entrusted ties of relationships. And lastly, is scripture the lies in scripture or the misreading of scripture that makes the relationship of mother in the society, woman, females in the society disrespected. You know, but specifically the the Catholic Church, you know, identifying women not having souls and being the accomplice of the devil and bringing the fall of man. This is still vibrating throughout the culture, you know, throughout the world. You know, this disrespect of women, even in terms of the Hajj. You know, Allah establishes that the woman can pray anywhere, but when they get back home, you know, you have this hijabi mentality. And what I mean by that is hijab means a petition. The actual word that Allah describes for the head covering, the modest head covering, is kimar. So even in the selection of a word for the modest head covering, it has implications. Hijab is a partition, you know, to block something off. Thank you.
Thank you. We give you 5 points on that co-host scorecard, Brother Michael.
Gracias, con mucho gusto.
You know, I better share this thought before I forget it. Some of you probably have the Imam Muhammad's presentation at the Vatican when he spoke, you know, years ago. And I think it was John Paul II was the Pope at that time. But what he said in that speech somewhat parallels to what our most recent American Pope said in his delivery. And I went back to read it a little carefully or to listen to it. Very, very universal appeal to the value of the believer and how we should all be working together toward a common goal. Much to be said about that in the near future, inshallah.
Inshallah. You know, Brother Michael mentioned the Catholic Church. So Imam Muhammad established this relationship between those in association with him, with the community, the Focolari community of Jara Lubitsch. And this past Saturday, throughout the country, at various locations, masjids and Focolari centers, um, there was a commemoration of the pact that had been established between these two community leaders. And I was able to attend the one that was at Masjid Warathin in Oakland. And I was so happy that I attended um, because uh, I was able to achieve a goal that was part of my reason for attending. Um, During the years that there's been interactions with the Focolari, I think I may have attended one thing. Yeah, I did attend one thing that was at Masjid Awara thing, but I have not been involved in that interfaith connection with the Focolari between children growing up and I had to really kind of re-examine myself why I was not connected with it, although I've worked with interfaith movements. And I used to be a speaker with Islamic Networks groups that was here in California. Part of the California State Social Studies curriculum has a portion that deals with Al-Islam. And so Islamic network groups that was established by Sister Maha El Junaidi many years ago um, would had a cadre of speakers that would go in to the public schools and I would say put meat on the bones or have a live Muslim there that the students could interact with and ask questions of to get a better understanding of what was contained in the social studies curricula. And as a result of that, I went to a Catholic school that was in San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco at the time, I believe. Yeah, I was living in San Francisco at the time. So this was over 35 years or so ago. Um, and I met this sister, Sister Margaret, and in my personal experience, I went through 12 years of Catholic school education, so I'm very familiar with the approach of nuns, let's say. And so Sister Margaret, after I did that presentation, she would periodically have me come back. And I think because of my education in Catholic school system and that experience, which was positive, um, I felt that I had maybe put in my time with Catholic Interfaith. But anyway, I was going to do the Focolare meeting because if people remember back in October, I think it was September, October, um, we had on representatives from Friends of the Congo. And then recently, back in April, when we had Sister Carrie Crawford from Friends of the Congo, she mentioned that they were putting together and going to engage in a prayer for peace for Congo, um, Palestine, Sudan, Yemen, Ukraine, or just a general prayer for peace. So in the Congo, I didn't know this until recently that there is a huge, huge population of Catholics. Catholic Church is strong in the Congo, and so I mentioned to Carrie that we have had this association with Focolare. So my mission Saturday was to try and get a contact that I could put Carrie in contact with for this prayer campaign. And I made dua before I went to the meeting, and alhamdulillah, there were um, there were two sisters who from the Focolare movement who were sitting near me, and so the one that I tried to approach, she was distracted by someone else, and they were talking about a different topic. And so then I went and I was talking to this other lady. And as it turned out, when I explained to her about the Congo the prayer for peace in the Congo, and I gave her my contact information and all of that, and she said, "Oh yeah, I'm glad you gave this to me because the we have a priest in our congregation, and she was from South San Francisco, who was from the Congo." And I said, "Wow, look at that! Allah will put you in the right place in the right circumstances to, if you have the right intention. I believe I had the right intention to bring things about and to make the connections that you need to make." A long story, but inshallah, in future programming, I hope to bring more information as this campaign develops. Um, to get people involved in this prayer for peace and hopefully to join with like Repair the Breach and other organizations. I'm trying to think. I was on a call, and I don't think that there was anyone from Repair the Breach who was on that call, Brother Fleming. So, but I'm sure that they will be in the future. Somebody, um, inshallah. There was someone from North Carolina. I just don't remember the organization that the lady was from. So, a long story. Sorry. And note, I do not preface mine with I'm gonna take 30 seconds or and then go 5 minutes. I just go straight for the 5 minutes. But Brother Fleming, hold that up again. You had the pack. Okay. So is that a publication that someone can get from either the Mosque Cares or Ronald Shahid?
Imam Sahir out of Indianapolis, he used to contact me to purchase the book.
Okay, Mikhail Sahir, Michael Mikhail Sahir.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah. Okay,
and I was blessed to be able to meet her in New York City when Imam Muhammad brought her to New York at
okay.
Masjid al-Shabazz to
Hmm.
hear her presentation. So, alhamdulillah. And Roberto, actually his proper name, when Imam Muhammad brought him on the stage in Chicago one time too, one of his public addresses. So David Shahid is very much involved with them also and continuing that relationship that was
Alhamdulillah.
established.
Okay, good.
So, um, I like that you said that you just take the 5 minutes. Uh, these water days, right? You just did the 5 minutes. Uh, take it. Uh, I just got a message from Brother William Muhammad. He said he has COVID, so he's not gonna make it, but we should get a message from Mr. Rantwaha Sani. He's the owner of Allstate, so I'm waiting for him to let me know if he's still gonna be able to make it to talk about insurance. But in the meanwhile, I want to talk about something that you said earlier, sister, since we're talking about mothers today. I did this science thing a long time ago, and the connection between mothers, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
I want to go back to that because there was something fascinating that I did a long time ago, and then my daughter, who, for those of you who don't know, is also a scientist. Yay! One of the joys of my life is to get one child out of three who's a scientist. Well, technically, two of them because one decided to do engineering, so it's a science, but to do a life science, get one doing life science, it's joy. Um, so I got all three of them in STEM, somehow in STEM, but to get a actual life scientist. So there was a study that showed that the connection between mother and child is really deep. Most people know this intuitively, except this particular study. So let me back up. So most people know that it's, the mother and child bond starts really early. You may not know that bond starts at the moment, pretty much conception, right? It starts, it's a really profound bond because the child not only depends on the mother, but the mother's life a lot of time depends on uh, the psychological, the physiological. There's an exchange between the fetus and the mother. There's these the biological materials that the mother exchanges with the fetus is there's a maternal fetal bond, and I'm saying it that way on purpose. That happens. And so the total molecular exchange, it becomes this really key determinant in upon the birth of the child, of how that person's health will be over their lifetime. And I say that because a lot of times we don't strongly underscore how important it is, or how important a mother's health is in influencing a child's maturity and immunity over their lifetime. When we look at the mortality rate of Black women and Indigenous women, it's still significantly higher. The last statistics they have are in 2024, and it's still significantly higher than white women and Asian women. Latino women is in the middle, and it can be traced back to the nutritional and prenatal care of Black women and Indigenous women. The diagnostic and preventative measures that can help children live really long, healthy, and healthy is based on medical standards. Lives can be traced back to the prenatal care and the nutritional habits of their mother when the children were in utero. Because their very first connection, their healthy connection, is that right there. So science can do a lot of things, but it can undo the damage of that first maternal fetal bond. So mothers truly do have the very first connection. So the earliest connection, of course, is made after. I'm gonna get a little scientific. So tell me if I get too scientific. Um, so the very first connection is gonna be, after the fertilized egg transforms into the cells that form the embryo and the placenta, and then the organs that start to provide the oxygen and the nutrients from the mother to the growing fetus happens. And then, the genetic networks that allow like the embryos to establish this really healthy connection from the mother through the placenta, and which, if you remember your, what is it, middle school, let's say middle school science, you know that the placenta is where you're going to get most of your nutrients, right? Um, if you identify all of the genes that are coming through, the placenta forms these cells that are going to push through the maternal tissue, and all of the oxygen and the nutrient exchange that's happening. Any failure in that process can lead to like a number of the disorders that we see happening in the children. And it can result in like the preterm births, preeclampsia. It can cause the mother's blood to like rise dangerously. We have a lot of Black and brown women with not just high blood pressure, what's the other one, like gestational diabetes.
Yes.
You can have intrauterine growth restriction, which is like when the baby's not growing at the expected growth rate. So this is when most hospitals, most doctors, they have these like targeted interventions where they go in, especially when they have gestational diabetes or they have preeclampsia or they see the baby's turned around the wrong way, and they come in with these really targeted ways to make sure that there's a healthy connection between the mother and the fetus so that they can promote this healthy growth and that the delivery is one that is healthy for both the mother and the child. There's also this thing about anything that the mother is not just eating, but her. If you remember back in, I think it's mostly 80s and 90s, there's a scare of anything that the mother is taking in. Was it in the 80s, like the big AIDS
Yes, it
scare?
was. It was in the
Was
80s.
80s was HIV scare?
Yeah, I guess so.
Was it the 80s, I think?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
So that's when everyone was fearful that anything from the mother's antibodies was going to transfer to the baby in utero or through her breast milk. So you have to really protect the infant from those kind of illnesses, especially in utero and in the first few months of their life. But the hard part about that is those same antibodies are really, really necessary to assist those infants, the fetus and the infants, to promote them to get the really healthy bacteria in their gut. It's really necessary as a fetus and then in the first few months of life. The same antibodies that can harm them are the ones that they need at the beginning of their life that's going to help them for the rest of their life. And that's what most people don't understand. The ones that you build in your body as an infant will help you for the rest of your life. These are why mamas are important. You can't duplicate it in a formula. You can't duplicate it in a test tube. It comes directly from the mama. Um, the lack of those maternal antibodies, it can lead to like this excessive immune activation in the gut, and it can cause all kind of things with the baby's weight gain. They'll gain too much, they gain too little. Their metabolism is off, their development is off. It can lead to you have there was a period of time where a lot of children were having developmental issues, and the doctors were really confused. Why are we having so many children born with developmental issues? Insufficient growth. They call it failure to thrive. You guys remember hearing that a lot?
Yes.
Failure to
Yes.
thrive. A lot of that came from that period of time. Remember, they called them, I don't like this term, but I'm going to use it, crack babies. You remember that?
Yeah.
And they called them, they said, and it was a failure to thrive. And a lot of that came from mothers and now you see it a lot with meth, people on methamphetamines, or, people who are any kind of substance abuse, but especially drink a lot. If they're malnutrition, if they just, and now we're seeing it a lot if we tie this to the political realm, in Gaza and Yemen and Sudan and places that are war-torn countries. We see it a lot with mothers who are severely malnutritioned. It's not just starving them, it's starving their children, and they cannot build the antibodies to give to their babies, and they cannot nurse effectively. And that is not just for now, that will affect them for the rest of their life because they cannot build it in their gut. So even if you were able to feed them, right? Even if you're able to, there was an experiment with pregnant mice who were infected with these intestinal worms, and they tried to give them these antiviral. And what they did was they tried to give them the serum. But what happened was, as they grew into adulthood, they were more susceptible to getting sick. And that is what's happening to our children. As they get older, if you're not able to protect them as in the womb, and you're not able to protect them as young infants, you see that they get sick more often. And there's a pattern in that study. So infection in mothers also leads to the child's brain development. So when you see this whole, there's a cause to, okay, why are there so many more children with ADHD and ADD and
Autism.
autism and mental capacity illnesses? If you trace it back to what were the mothers eating, what were the mothers doing, were the mothers smoking, were the mothers taking drugs, were the mothers not eating certain foods, were the mothers eating certain foods, were those foods infected with certain foods, and trace it back to that molecular connection between the mother and the child, or the fetus first, and then the mother and the child, and you will see this remarkable impact the connection has for the babies to reach their developmental potential.
As you were talking, I was looking LinkedIn. I guess I don't access it as often as I should, but there was a post. I guess it was over maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, of a sister who was doing a study on the maternal
Mm.
death rates, and this is a connection between what we talk about in terms of political and civic engagement and, on the ground, what you're talking about. Um, the study that she had been engaged in for several years, the executive order immediately stopped funding on that. The DEI executive order, as well as this whole anti-science movement that these executive orders are implementing. And so she was very distraught, and some people, tried to offer different suggestions on how she might be able to continue her study. And I didn't find it here right now, but perhaps I can look a little more thoroughly, um, because I think she has started a fundraising, an independent fundraising kind of campaign also to be able to complete the study. The but the thing that was so surprising to me was that she was engaged in this study, and I can remember um, with my son, when I was pregnant with my son, that this was a whole big thing. So this is why I could tell you it was in the 80s of the mortality rate with African American women um, who are pregnant. That was a whole big thing back then. And then maybe 5 or 6 years later, they were talking about how it was uh, as a result of the work that they were doing in that area, how that mortality rate was going down. And then I was just surprised to find out back here now, 35 years or so later, it's back up again, and so for the policies to be implemented by this administration that cut off that kind of research, that is additional proof of, in my mind, maybe not in anyone else's mind, of the ineptitude of this current administration and why it is so important, so very important to be politically and civically engaged so that um, we can put pressure on these Congress people that don't have a backbone to stand up against, and don't just rely on the social organizations that are putting forward the judicial challenges by filing these lawsuits and whatnot. If you have a representative who has not stood up to these executive orders, then we need to contact them. We need to stay on them to let them know this is not okay. You have been elected to do there and do your job as far as legislation. And if the executive branch is infringing on the areas of authority of the representative branch, then the representatives have to stand up. And then also, Cheryl, as you're talking about nutrition, the executive orders or the continuing resolutions and proposed budget that is talking about cutting SNAP, cutting all of these support programs um, that are geared to help life once the baby is born. How can you be pro-life and you don't support the programs that sustain life once life is here? You're concerned about a fetus, and you're having all of this argument of when does life occur, this, that, and the other. And Al-Islam is pretty clear when life occurs, but um, we know that they're not going to accept that. But anyway, we just have to I have to emphasize, we have to put more pressure on these members of Congress who are absolutely doing nothing but marking time. They're being placeholders, and they are witnesses to the destruction of the framework of the government and the government services that benefit the struggling, all the members of society, but especially those who are struggling um, financially to try and stay afloat and who need these type of support programs. So I just can't say that much. So you were going very scientific, and I appreciate you doing that because it's important to draw the connection between the real life on the ground thing with political and civic engagement. And thank you for that.
Yeah, I thought that, oh, go ahead, Brother Phil. I saw your lips
Yes,
moving.
that's a pinpoint what my sister just said. You know, I still serve as vice chair of public health and Forsyth County and Department of Social Services. And years ago, we started a program called Directed Care. What was the purpose? Prenatal care up to 6 weeks after the baby is born. First funded by through grants, but then eventually the county commissioners pick up the costs. Now they have a limited number of people they can put into the program, but the stimulus was the disparity of infant mortality among our people versus, I'll say, the general population. Once a year, they have what's called a baby carriage march, and they have the exact number of babies who pass African American or brown people during the course of that year, and they march about a half a mile, in fact, and they have a program identifying what would be the next steps to decrease this disparity. It's very, very well supported by the community, but sometimes your local government, if they have the principles and the courage, they can support programs like that because it is an issue today. It is a real issue today. Um, and I just want to say, I've been in the living room 6 times with my wife. Brothers, there's no one where you could have a baby. And I'll turn it back over to you, Cheryl.
I just there's another thing that I wanted to tell people that I found when we were researching. There was this there's this phenomenon. I don't want to freak you out, but there's this phenomenon that scientists discovered that there's children's cells living in their mother's brains.
Yes, that's from that flow, that connection between the blood flow.
And now, men, you don't have to go through this. So go back to what Sister Matala said. Mother's baby, daddy's baby.
Daddy's movie.
So, that's that link between a mother and a child that we always talk about is so profound. And that physical connection that is so deep that's this why, you say a mother goes crazy over her child. Maybe because it's in her brain. She can't help it, right? There is a psychological, a physical, a physiological bond between a mother and her child, whether it's during gestation or afterwards, that when you see something like a mother in who, when she sees something happen to her child, she legit might be losing her mind when someone harms her child. They share, like my daughter always says, she made this joke once. I was lying in bed. My husband and I are lying in bed watching television. My daughter comes and she crawls up between the two of us. And husband's like, "What are you doing? Go back to your own babe." She say, "No." And she comes and she nestles up next to me and she hugs on me. And he told her this is my wife. And she said, "This is my mom." And he said, "I've known her longer than you. She was my wife first." And she said, she's my mom. She said, he said, "I've known her longer than you." She said, "We share the same heartbeat." And then I looked at he looked at me, and I said, "Touche." She won. And then she looked at him like, "You should leave." Like, she won. I mean, what do you want me to say? She won. And so, when the mother is everything for that developing feed, it supplies the warmth, the sustenance as in food and the heartbeat. This is why when you have a little baby, and you're trying to calm the baby, the mother's heartbeat, that you put them against the mother's chest. It's this really smooth, constant rhythm that they know is a familiarity, right?
Right.
Yes, the father at some point can do that, but that physical connection, whether it's the placenta, and the placenta is an organ. Most people don't know this, right? It's an organ. It's built from the cells from both the mother and the fetus. And that's the conduit for all of those nutrients and the gases and even the waste products of the fetus. So those, because the cells migrate through the placenta between the mother and the fetus, it can take up residence in those organs, in the lungs, in the thyroid, in the muscles, in the liver, the heart, the kidney, in the skin, and even the brain. And so there's a broad range of impact that it can have on both the mother and the child. And so tissue repair, cancer prevention, all of that can spark like immune disorders. And so there's a whole field of study the scientists have entered into. And this is why, going back to Cesar Matzela's point about, stopping the funding of research on this. And it's mainly stopped because people who don't believe in science or don't know about science or don't understand science don't understand that this is really helping with cancer prevention in reproductive organs, reproductive science. This is people who don't understand it. This is helping with understand women who have multiple miscarriages, women who are unable to bear children, women who have, there's a study that has revealed that some of these cells are less common in the brains of women with Alzheimer's disease, which another study has suggested that women with multiple births are more prone to have Alzheimer's.
And I can tell you why on that one.
Children drive us crazy? I don't
No.
know.
Well, especially, I was just having this discussion with, I think my daughter and her husband. Yeah, the two of them. And this is something that I think people don't understand. And we go back to what you mentioned as far as Nisa, the chapter Nisa. I believe it is in Nisa, or maybe not. It might be the chapter that deals with divorce. But anyhow, those women or those mothers who nurse your children. My sister-in-law wrote a book, Tawheed Who Never Sleeps, because my son, he never slept. This child never slept. Little cat naps here and there, here and there. That interrupted sleep of the mother, I believe, would make you more prone to those type of mental diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, and all of that, because that nursing mother, that period of time that she is nursing, she has no guarantee of uninterrupted hours of sleep. A nursing mother, I'll go out on a limb and say, intuitively, I know she doesn't get 6 hours of sleep, straight 6 hours of sleep. If she has a nursing child, no, That's why so many times people try to encourage the mother, girl, you better stop breastfeeding that baby. Give him some of that. What do they use? They give him some of that rice and that milk and mash it up and give it to him so that baby will sleep through the night, because that interruption of your sleep has such a devastating effect on it can have on the mother. But I believe that there are adjustments that the mother can make, perhaps. I can remember when I was first pregnant, a friend of mine said, I'm telling you, girl, when that baby goes down, you go down. And
Mhm.
so many women ignore that. And that is critical to know when that baby goes to sleep, you better go to sleep. You can get up and do those dishes later, but get your rest, you know. And so all of these health concerns are very critical and very important in terms of the support of the mother with a new child. And there are so many other so-called developing countries of the world that have have policies that build in the support system for um, the mother and even the father, for the family, with the birth and addition of new children. You know, the time off from work, you know, paid time off from work to be able to bond with the child. All of these different social policies that people with just that capitalist view don't see the importance of. Um, but in the long, and that's being short-sighted. But in the long run, you can see the benefit that the society gets from the investment in these types of support systems through the nutrition, through the education. For example, the uh, the proposed ending of you know, the pre-K thing. I got distracted. Someone came in. The what is the educational program for the young children? It's pre-K.
Head Start.
Head Start. Head Start. Yes. You know, and this is why I said we have to. Someone put in the chat. You know, as far as these political operatives, yeah, they get our vote and then they listen to the lobbyists. I don't disagree with that, but that doesn't mean we don't fight back. We got to stand up. Um, your constituents who got you in, they should have more power than the lobbyists. Yes, the lobbyists help you with your campaign, but we have to remember the counterweight that we have is our vote. And if you know the person hasn't been carrying out their duties, it's our obligation. I don't care how many ads come across Instagram, TikTok, the TV, the radio, or how many um, campaign flyers and whatnot you get in the mail. You know if your community, you know if your life is better. And if it isn't, vote your interests. Don't vote against your interests. Vote your interests. And we got to turn this around. But I want to ask one question completely off the topic. I
Okay.
hope he can talk. I see that Brother Ishmael is on. And I meant to ask him this question last week, but I didn't get an opportunity to. Brother Ishmael, has your daughter graduated? Why don't you give us an update on her educational journey, if you can talk?
I can. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thanks for asking.
Uh,
Can you hear me okay?
yes, coming
Yes.
loud and clear.
Okay. So yeah, you knew her story. So she did graduate early last year. So at the end of her junior year, she finished school. So that summer she didn't do anything, but that next school year she got her associate. So she finished all her classes for her associate. So she has her associates. Uh, so she spent half. So she had one semester off basically, where she didn't go to school at all. So
Okay.
which is this semester going on right now. So she plans to go to University of Houston in the fall, inshallah. That's where everything is planning.
Okay.
Good.
So
Alhamdulillah.
and she wants to she says she wants to do child psychology. She's still on that. So
Alhamdulillah.
I'm trying to gear her. I'm trying to gear her to maybe get her bachelor's in something else and get a doctorate in psychology, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But thank you for asking. But yeah, she's a special child. I was talking to Brother Mark the other day, and you know how teenagers, they want to go out and do all that kind of stuff. But she has one friend that she goes out with a lot. You know, they want to go out to eat. They may want to go to some party or something, but she wants me to take them and kind of wants me to kind of hang back. So I'm like, yeah. He said, man, most people those girls or boys that age don't want their parents to be around. So I say, yeah, it's kind of special, but I try to talk to him. I think she wants me around because hopefully I give him good advice and I kind of can act like I can relate to him. So inshallah, once she goes to college, she'll hopefully instill and keep a lot of those virtues that she has. So
Alhamdulillah. We make prayer for her and inshallah pray
thank
for
you.
continued success. And she sees her daddy as her protection.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of girls.
Exactly. She's been that way all her life. When we're at home, I probably tell you that we're at home, she's up under her mama. But we go out in public, she's right near me. And everybody thinks she
Right.
don't have anything to do with him. I said, no, believe me, when we're at home, she don't have anything to do with me. But when public, she's right there by me. So
Yeah.
it's a
Alhamdulillah.
good balance. It's a good balance.
Alhamdulillah. That girl got some good sense. Alhamdulillah. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to shift there because she had been on my mind. Alhamdulillah.
I think that's great. No, it's a great update.
Yep.
Wish you wasn't in Houston.
You want to go to the West Coast? You want to come to the West Coast?
Yeah, she can come to the West Coast.
Okay, I'll see. I always say keep your options open, so we'll see.
Yeah, we have some good schools out here. Come
After
to the West Coast.
she gets her bachelor's, maybe come
We'll
to
work with her on the West
yeah,
Coast.
for the PhD. Yeah, because
We work with her,
it's good for them to
Ishmael.
be close to home. It's good for those girls to be close to home, I believe. Inshallah.
Yeah, I got some room to adopt a little one.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Okay.
Keep her in mind. Give her in mind. She's not Houston. I got a bad taste in my mouth about Houston after that Warriors Houston.
Warriors, Houston. I missed that.
Oh yeah.
Well, Houston kind of gave Warriors a scare. They kind of took them to the limit, so she kind of has a bad taste about that.
It's just the way they play. We're ready to throw down and box. So, yeah, this is this other thing that I always talk about with women is similar to you, sister. I will tell you that my own experience with my children, all three of them were born very premature, and it's funny because when I say that, inevitably there's always one in a bunch who'll say, "Oh no, they were born. They were supposed to." No, they were premature, 6.5 weeks early, 5.5. The other two, even after bed rest, the other two were born, almost 6 weeks early. My oldest son was born just almost 7 weeks early, and that's the Cinco de Mayo baby. He was born. But he was due almost third week of June. It's born first week of May. However, like what you said earlier, I nursed him when they got out of the NICU. We nursed him all the way. No food, no solid food until it was about 18 months. That was a struggle. It was a struggle because I was always traveling. And so I always had to, I would fed it breast milk on dry ice to my mother-in-law. Well, I was committed because, I wanted to keep them healthy. And to this day, there's healthy children. And so when I did this research, and I was looking at this research, and when it says that, what the mothers do, and I'm telling you, I get ticked off of my husband about a whole lot of things, but this one, he used to sit there and watch me eat like a stalker.
Making sure you were eating the right things?
Yes, because I'm not that great of an eater. I'm not. Because you guys know I'm vegan and I don't like certain foods, and I'm a very peculiar eater. And the doctor was like, "Oh, you're not getting enough protein, you're not getting this." And so during my pregnancy, during that, especially with my first son, I actually I did eat fish. But he would sit there and watch me eat. He would cook the food, or my mother-in-law would cook something, and they would sit there and watch me eat. I was like, "Aren't you gonna eat?" No, no, we're gonna watch you eat first. And that's the most uncomfortable thing. So when I would travel, I'd be so happy. And then they call. Did you eat this? Did you eat this? Worse than my mom when I was in college. How many servings of this did you eat? Did you eat these? And then they pack my food in the morning when I go to work and buy these little bars from Costco. It was have like nuts and berries in it, these breakfast bars. It was great because look at my children. Because when I was pregnant, I just didn't like, I hated eating. I would get really sick in the morning. So I would have to eat a smoothie or one of those nutritious bars. But this study really brings home how important it is. It's not just for the growing fetus, like I said, it's the lasting impact for the child later. Because if you look at my children now, that middle one, he is 6'2", 6'3". They're all they're not just healthy, they're all very what's the slender. They're very they have very athletic builds, but they're all incredibly healthy. Their body is, I mean, they don't get sick. They and if they do, it's very surface. Like I hope I'm saying that right. They're very surface. Like I mean, even I'm like that. I have allergies. Like even now, I have allergies, but I we just don't get like most people get colds and flus and things like that. It just doesn't happen.
Well, now you
It-
think about in so many communities throughout America where they have what they call these food deserts, where you just have the little corner store or um, you have to go 5 miles to try and go to a so-called supermarkets. And when you get into supermarkets, they're not really arranged for our health needs, with the things that they have that greet you when you first get in. And you got to go all the way to the rear or all the way to the right, to the east or the west to get your vegetables, your fresh fruits and vegetables. Um, these are things that the civic and the political engagement can come together as far as people really working to have their community gardens or um, have their city councils or development agencies or get these block grants in to establish healthy eatery place, healthy supermarkets that can be community run. They don't necessarily have to be the elitist chains, and I don't want to mention any names, but those chains where they'll charge you. My husband came in the other day and he said, "Do you know of I think he said it was blueberries or something. They were selling for $9 a pound or something." I said, "Well, we can do without blueberries today and this week." And so, it's outlandish. It's outlandish. Some of these chains, I believe, are taking advantage of the effect of these executive orders or these tariffs, in advance. And the people that really need good nutrition are the ones who can't afford these places that so-called sell you the retail supermarkets. I'm not talking about the farmer markets, but the retail supermarket chains, um, where they have, the organic, either all of it is organic or they have their designated organic sections that just charge so much money. And then also with a lot of the retail chains, the person who may have the EBT card or whatever other designation that shows that they have some kind of food support program, just the disdain with which some of the cashiers deal with conducting the transaction and whatnot. All of these things are really geared towards not being supportive of the people in the society who need support systems. And it's important, I think, for us in our civic engagement to really work to, number one, reinforce and really enhance the support that we give to the people in the community who need it, and change the mindset of how we view folks who might be in any kind of situation, because person can be riding high today, and it just takes, with the way our society is structured, it just takes one um, serious car accident. And it's easy to have those with how crazy people are driving on the freeways and the streets, the local streets nowadays, to send a person into financial peril. And so these support systems, they used to call them safety nets, they're just critical. And we have to force the representatives to maintain and enhance the support systems for us here in America, and stop feeding the military industrial complex, stop feeding the weapons manufacturers with billions and billions and trillions of dollars, and help people to live healthy, happy lives. Inshallah. Fleming, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I had two thoughts. Let me see if I can recall them. The criteria for analyzing any kind of government policy should reflect or be reflected in the preamble to the Constitution. If it doesn't address those six purposes why we have a government, then the merit of it should be challenged. And that goes for any policy that the government tries to get passed, especially so-called executive orders lately. But I want to also add this too. In terms of community food access, there are food co-ops that try to purchase fresh food from local farmers in the area and provide a reasonable price for those products because they come from local farmers. We have a very successful one over in Greensboro. The one in Winston didn't get the kind of community support that they needed, and so they rely heavily on those. There's a name for that group, but they specialize in natural foods. But the food cost there is very challenging, and they take a lot of pride in making sure everything is naturally grown. But for the average person going in there, it's not really reasonable economically sometimes. And I wanted to add just a little commentary on feeding children. My wife breastfed all of our kids, right? And I have to ask Allah to forgive me because our first child was born in 1974. She would breastfeed Fleming, and we thought at that time that bean soup pureed would help the child grow up and be very healthy. And we actually had bean soup in a bottle, not immediately now, but later on, and fed my poor son, pureed bean soup. So Allah, please forgive me. Thank God he survived. He's healthy now and very successful. But we went into the Lamaze natural childbirth classes then, trying to do everything naturally, So that was the mindset back in 1974. But you very rarely hear of Lamaze now. It was an effort to try to get, husbands more involved in the whole process of giving birth and helping the mother as much as they could. And I'll never forget, I tried to hold my wife's hand on that third trimester on our first child. Big mistake, big mistake, big mistake. I thought she broke my two fingers. I didn't say anything. I acted like I was not, but I remember that pain very, very much so today, as if it happened yesterday. So I learned my lesson. Leave her alone and just breathe with her. But don't you dare put your hands on her during that moment of delivery. You'll pay the consequences. Oh man.
Oh,
Allahu Akbar.
And don't fall asleep.
But if you would tell me, I would walk the babies whenever she fell asleep and the baby woke up, she said, "Baby, it's your turn." So I walked those babies. I probably put 2 or 3 miles in the house trying to get them back to sleep, But I enjoyed that.
I'm
I
talking about
enjoyed
during childbirth. My husband has the nerve to fall asleep. Like, what are you sleeping for? Why are you tired?
it.
What are you
Yeah, I was
tired
all-
for?
Look, she took a picture of me with my baby on my chest on the couch, sleep. And I got my hand over his back, holding him to my chest, She done all the work, of course, quite naturally, but I was still trying to comfort the baby. And I did fall
Sorry,
asleep. I
Phyllis.
admit.
I'm sorry, fellas, but I'm not sorry. What are you tired for?
Exactly.
You don't get to sleep. Wake up. I think I
So
threw a
true.
shoe or something. I threw a remote. I was lying in the hospital bed. I threw something. I don't know what it was, but I threw something. He said, ow. And I said, did you say something hurt?
Mhm.
Did you say ow, sir?
Oh man. I
Wake
didn't fall
up.
asleep in the living room though. I wouldn't dare I was trying to breathe with her, At that time we're
You-
teaching how to breathe as she was having a baby, So
He said
alhamdulillah.
something. I think he said something to me like, because my sister-in-law showed him how to read the thing, the meter thing, the thing that said that um the contraction was coming.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Now, when she said it to me, I was perfectly fine. But when he said something, I must have burned a hole in his soul with my eyeballs. Are you talking? Are you talking to me? I'm the reason. You're the reason I'm here.
Here.
Don't talk to me. And he said I squeezed his hand like I think the same thing as your wife, Fleming. I must have broke his hand.
Oh yes,
Say
Lord.
he said your face turned like tomato, like a little cherry tomato.
Mm,
Like it was really, really red. I said, why are you talking right now?
mm,
Don't talk. He said, I'm
mm.
gonna go outside. You're going where? No, you stay right there. Don't go anywhere.
Oh,
You stay
man.
right there. You take all of this venom I'm spitting at you right now. My mother said, did she scream? She doesn't seem like, he said, no, she doesn't scream. I'm not a screamer. He said, she just looked mean. Yes.
Mm,
He said, she's really nice to the nurse and the doctor. She only mean to me. Yes. Because you fell asleep.
Mm.
Why are you
yeah.
sleeping? You shouldn't sleep.
Mm, mm.
I was nice to the baby.
Alhamdulillah for that.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Until he bit me.
Oh my goodness. Well, that goes without saying. Those are
Mm,
the
I can see why, you better take him before he gets thrown across the room.
mm.
Yes. So yeah. So okay, so we can anybody have any questions? Miss Martha, you're off mute. You have something would you like to say, madam?
she may be multitasking. I don't
As we
I don't
as
see
we often do.
yeah,
As we often do.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Maybe if anyone has a question or comment, we're almost completed with the program, so we can.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Ishmael again.
Yes,
My
sir.
sister giving that story. Like she giving me PTSD of my wife, how she used to look at me, and she used to always say, she always say, I'm not the only one I know, but it's just hard for me. My problem was I always had to say something. That was my issue, and I finally got over it. But she said, you always got something to say. I said, well, I'm gonna try to be quiet. I'll stop. So
And you didn't stop, did you? You didn't stop,
I
did you?
stopped for a few. I didn't stop for a while. Every now and then I do it, and I remember why I stopped, and I stop again. So now I'm stopped now for hopefully it lasts some years.
Sister Martha, Assalamu
Yes.
alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum
Is,
assalam, brother.
is Sister Marva still alive? I know I visited her.
As far as I know, I intended to call her yesterday. I didn't. I know I'm gonna get chewed out for that, but I talked with her either Thursday or Friday of last week.
Yes, oh, thank you.
Yes,
I lived in Birmingham, and I had an opportunity to visit her and Brother Gaius before
yes,
he passed.
yes.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
she's good. Her memory is not as sharp as it is, but sometimes you hit a note and she'll tell you every single thing that happened. Um, but she's doing very well. Alhamdulillah.
Allah Akbar. Thank you.
Yes,
She was an angel in my life when I lived in Chicago, hands down.
hands down. So inshallah, yeah, all of the students that she interacted with, that she taught, I meet some of them, at different programs and whatnot. So she was very instrumental. The thing that about Salima that is just so wonderful, she's such a giving person. I mean, because like when I met her, she was a single mother with 5 children, and she had just a single sister had just left her house that had been living with her, and here she took me in, and I was like, "Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot on a salary from the Muhammad University of Islam." So
Yes.
so that's what you call a master economist, financial planner, all wrapped up into one. And she was not a stingy person. She extended herself with acts of charity and sadaqah to
Yes.
whoever she met. Alhamdulillah.
Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah.
Thank,
Alhamdulillah.
thank.
So as we wrap up, I wanted to have Sister, could you remind there's an event that's upcoming that was announced last week.
Oh, are you talking about the business meeting in New Medina?
Could
Was
you
that?
remind? Yes.
Yes, with Brother Ali from New Medina, which is in Mississippi. It is the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before Memorial Day. Brother Fleming, do you have, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me. He gave the contact information for those who, I would suggest people, I'm looking around to see if I can find where I put it. Brother Ali gave the contact information for folks who might want to go. Oh, I know you can go to visitnewmedina.com. Visitnewmedina.com. If it's not .com, do visitnewmedina.org, but I think it's .com. And then the other link was newmedina.com. Newmedina.com. To get information on the cost. I do remember him saying the cost was $125 for all 3 days. They're going to have Juma, and then after Juma, they're going to have some workshops, and then Saturday, they're going to have workshops also. And for those who weren't on the call, New Medina was a community established 35 years ago. And first they purchased 5 acres. Now I think he said they have 500 acres. No, first they purchased 85, and now I think they have 500 acres. And they're in the process this year, planning towards getting their standing as a municipality. And they have some farming, and some herding that's going on the property by individuals who live there and who've established that. There's homes there on the property that believers have purchased. And it's a wonderful endeavor that is started humbly and is growing. And Cheryl put www.newmedina.org. It's org, okay, newmedina.org. So inshallah, it's not too late. Go ahead and go to the link and get the information and register to attend. Make that your Memorial Day vacation spot. There are hotels that are available in a neighboring city there in,
Hattiesburg.
is it Hattiesburg?
Hattiesburg, yeah.
Hattiesburg. Very reasonable rates, not far from the location of New Medina. And just have a wonderful time.
Yes.
Have your s'mores and more.
The 39th retreat at New Medina. 39th, you're having a retreat there. And I was sharing with Dr. Ali that my wife got her PhD from the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg years ago. And I tried to find that place back in 1991. When she was a student, I couldn't find it. I looked and I looked and I looked, but then it was just beginning to evolve
Right,
into what it is today. But
right.
our
Is
captain
it
is buried
Sumter?
down
Is it Sumter, Mississippi?
there. Yes, right outside of Sumter. It's actually an unincorporated area, so you have to
Mhm.
really know where you're going to find it. But it's visible now. You can see it from the road.
Right.
You couldn't see it then, you know. But alhamdulillah, a lot of plans down there, a lot of good plans. So I think Elijah Muhammad Jr. is buried there, in fact.
Yes, yes, he did mention that. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that. And before we go, one more announcement. Brother Fleming, what do you have in store for us next week, inshallah?
Right? Civic engagement and culture preservation. Civic engagement and cultural preservation.
It calls for preservation.
All right.
Inshallah, next week, next Monday, the 19th at 10 a.m. And before I give you some
Pacific time,
words,
10 a.m. Pacific, 1
yes,
p.m. Eastern.
Thank
you
you.
know, I don't think about me.
The East Coast to the West Coast or West Coast to the East Coast,
Yes.
whichever you prefer.
Yeah. Before I go, I do have one more thing. I know it's 12:02, but I have to say this before we go because it was bugging me all night, and I would be remiss without saying it. What is going on in South Carolina? They
South-
celebrating. Yeah, South Carolina. And I'm going to put this on people's mind before we go because we're talking about civic engagement and we can just explore it more next week. But I need people to hear this and hear me well. South Carolina just celebrated Confederates Day,
Yes,
Confederates Memorial Day.
yes.
Oh, yes.
And so I get it that people may not care about politics and all of that. But this is what happens when you skip out on politics.
Right.
That
right.
you have people celebrating Confederates Memorial Day.
Yeah.
When you celebrate Confederates Memorial Day,
You're a traitor.
you're taking down anything because you think DEI is horrible. After taking away money from HBCUs, after taking away money from institutions serving indigenous people, after taking away money from indigenous tribes for clean water and fresh food, after taking away money from uh, research that's affecting Black and brown women and indigenous women, after taking away money from institutions that are doing research for cancer and blood diseases, but you have enough money for Confederates Memorial Day, for people who fought against the Union, for this country that all of us are owners, have ownership in, for people who fought against the enslavement and the brutalization of people with Black and brown skin and DNA, for people who brutally murdered, raped, and pillaged Black people in this country, who still wanted to keep them as property rather than recognize their humanity. And you celebrated that because you thought that you thought and still think that that's the good old, that's what you will make America great. That's where we are.
Hmm. Sure, I've got to add 3 seconds. We had
You
our
could add
family
30,
reunion.
you could add 3 minutes, sir.
Listen,
I'm
we had
here
our
for
family,
it.
we had
I'm
our
here for
family
it.
reunion in South Carolina once, right? Maybe 10 years ago. To my surprise and disappointment, they had a march of Black people in Confederate uniforms marching with the Confederate soldiers in the city where we had the reunion at. I said I would never come back here again because I'm talking about 10 years ago. I said, how in the world can you put on a Confederate uniform and march with these Confederate soldiers honoring so-called states' rights during the Civil War? You had drank the Kool-Aid, and you're drunk still today. But there were brothers dressed up, and I want to throw a rock at them. It's just the idea of you would put on the uniform, a Confederate uniform, march the Confederate soldiers to honor what they did to your own people. It was just very disturbing. And so it just reminded me, because you look like me, don't make you think like me. And there's a lot more I could say about that, but it is an issue. And this, fortunately, in North Carolina, we finally got a vote for a sister who's been running for Supreme Court justice,
Yeah,
finally resolved.
finally
So she got the
resolved.
seat.
Yeah.
In fact, she will be officially given the hammer, as I called it, but the thing they
Gavel.
gavel. Thank
Gavel.
you so much. Tomorrow, officially, 6 months and 2 days later, after the election was actually done, just to show the vicious plot that these people try to do to win the election over themselves. Wanted to challenge 60,000 voters to make sure he would win the election. And we think a lot that he did not win it, and the case is finally closed. But there's a lot we need to do. A lot of education, brothers and sisters, we still need to have to make ourselves more progressive in this country
Yes.
and more
And-
respectful of our own history.
Yes. And the celebration or the statues and the flags and all of that, that's the outward sign. The vicious thing that they really are doing is all of their voter suppression tactics and
Yes.
schemes. And I hope on the 26th to have at least one segment on that whole voter suppression thing, because we got to wake up to it, because they are not playing. They're trying every trick in the book that they can possibly implement to try and stay in power. And so, um, like that sister that told you, Brother Fleming, about, price of bread affecting your family, and that got you engaged. I don't know what it's going to take for us to get more of us engaged in this process. I'm not saying that it's the best process. I don't say that you have to love the process. I'm just saying, if you're going to win at the game, you got to know the rules of the game, and you got to play the game so
Yes,
that you can
yes.
win. And so that, to me, that is just the practical approach that we have to implement. And for me, one thing, I'm glad that Cheryl said, country that we all own. One thing that, because I didn't vote until what, 75 or 8 was it? I'm trying, maybe maybe when Ross Perot ran, I think that was the first time that I voted as an adult. So you know how
Mhm.
long that was. Was it 76 or something like that? But the thing that got me to vote was Winnie Man Muhammad um, reminded us, look, we have paid more than a share. You look at the market and you say, well, the share price for Nvidia is this, the share price for Microsoft, the share price for Apple, and you pay that price so that you can become a part owner in that company. And I relate that to, we have an ownership in this country going
Yes.
back to
Mhm.
the first African American that shed blood for this country, going
So,
back to those who were in the Civil War, those who were in World War One. I can't imagine you go and you fight for a country, and you come back and they still calling you. You know what they were calling us, and they still lynching you on the trees, and they still saying you got to get off the bus because, or either sit in the back. Those people paid a price, and I think maybe we forget that a price was paid for us to be here. It's not the best situation, but we can certainly make it better. And so
yes.
it's an obligation for us to make it better. So we have to learn the rules of the game, play the game for our interests, not for somebody else's interest, for our interests, so that we can win. So
That's
To be
mm,
continued.
to be
To
continued.
be
to
continued.
be continued, to be continued, to be continued. Tear it
Yes.
down, tear it down, tear it down, tear it down.
Oh,
Change what you want and what you want and see how what you want will change. Abuela.
well, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful Monday. Do something for someone else without the expectation that they will do something in return. Stay powerful. Stay prayerful. Stay politically engaged. Stay philanthropic. We will see you back here on Map 5, inshallah, next week. Same time in your time zone. And with that,
It's a wrap.
it's todo. It's a wrap. Have a great one.
You